Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to discuss part 4 of Principles of Tooth Preparation. In this lecture, I will discuss about various finish line configurations. I will try to discuss the finish lines according to contemporary fixed prosthodontics by Rosenstiel and Fundamentals of Fixed Prosthodontics by Schillenberg. The restoration can survive in the biologic environment of the oral cavity only if the margins are closely adapted to the cavo surface finish lines of the preparation. And the configuration of finish line dictates the shape and bulk of the metal at the margins. It affects the marginal adaptation and also the degree of seating. According to GPT-9, the finish line can be defined as a line of demarcation determined by 2 points. In dentistry, it is defined as the junction of prepared and unprepared tooth structure with the margin of a restorative material, and it is also defined as the planned junction of different materials. So that is about the definition of finish lines. Finish line configurations are chamfer, heavy chamfer, shoulder, sloped shoulder, radial shoulder, shoulder with a bevel and knife edge. A well-designed preparation has a smooth and even margin. Rough, irregular or stepped junctions between the tooth and restoration greatly increase the overall marginal length and substantially reduce the adaptation accuracy of the restoration. And the smooth margin is considerably shorter than a jagged one. Here it is an accurately fitting margin which is possible only if it is prepared smoothly. Okay, this is a jagged one. Chamfer margin. It is particularly suitable for cast metal crowns and the metal only portion of the metal ceramic crowns. And it has a distinct margin and also easily identified. And the margin which having least stress is the chamfer margin. And it provides room for adequate bulk of the material and development of anatomically correct axial contours. Okay. And the most suitable instrument for making a chamfer margin is a tapered diamond with a rounded tip. And the resulting margin is the negative image of a round-ended tapered diamond. Okay, this is the exact image of the instrument. That is about the chamfer. Okay. Here the chamfer margin. It is demonstrated on a full veneer crown preparation. And the finish line possesses a curved slope from the axial wall till the margin. This is the chamfer finish line. So it can be produced using a torpedo diamond point. And the same diamond point which is used to reduce more tooth structure will form a deep chamfer. And it is the finish line of the choice for glass metal restoration and the lingual margins of the metal ceramic restoration. But it is not indicated for any restoration where the finish line will be obvious. That is about the chamfer and deep chamfer. This is the deep chamfer on a preparation for an all ceramic crown. Here it is the 90-degree finish line formation. And the deep chamfer which provides better support for a ceramic crown than does a conventional chamfer. But it is not good as shoulder. a bevel can be added to the deep chamfer for use with the metal restoration. Okay. In this picture, it shows the precise control of the orientation of the diamond, and it is very important because tilting away from the tooth, it creates an undercut. Okay, undercut creates when the preparation tilting away from the tooth, that is orientation of diamond is tilting away from the tooth, then it creates an undercut. And opposing axial preparation walls diverge in an occlusal direction. But in the case of tilting toward the tooth or angling it toward the tooth, it creates excessive convergence and reduction and loss of retention. Okay. Here the diamond is tipped away from the path of placement, resulting in an undercut. Here the diamond is tipped into the tooth too far, leading to excessively tapered preparation. Okay. Here, a chamfer margin should not be wider than half the rotary instrument used to form it. Otherwise, a lip of unsupported enamel will be left. All unsupported enamel must be removed. It is a very important thing. All unsupported enamel must be removed. And the care should be taken to avoid leaving a lip of unsupported enamel. Here, this is the lip formation. It is due to improper instrumentation. Here the improper instrumentation which leads to lipping. Okay. Here the chamfer margins which are recommended for cast metal crowns as well as the lingual margin of a metal ceramic crown. That is about the chamfer. Next, moving to the heavy chamfer. Here 90° cavo surface angle with a large radius rounded internal angle. It is also using round and tapered diamond. It is better than conventional chamfer but not shoulder. And bevel is added to use with the metal restoration. And it is indicated for all ceramic crowns. This is the deep chamfer on a preparation for all ceramic crown. And here it is a 90° finish line formation. Coming to shoulder finish line. Classic shoulder was used as the finish line of choice for an all ceramic crown. And the wide ledge which provides resistance to occlusal forces, and it also minimizes the stresses which might lead to the fracture of the porcelain. And it produced using flat and tapered bar. And it requires the destruction of more tooth structure than any other finish line. This is very important. It requires more tooth structure destruction. Okay. And the sharp 90° internal line angle associated with the classic shoulder finish line, it concentrates the stresses in the tooth and it leads to coronal fracture. Here it is a 90° finish line. Okay, 90° internal line angle. So this is the shoulder finish line and it associated with the stress in the tooth and it leads to the coronal fracture. And the shoulder is not used generally as a finish line for cast metal restorations. It is very important. And the chamfer is used for cast metal restoration and shoulder is used for all ceramic restorations. And the indications are all ceramic crowns and facial margin of porcelain fused metal crowns. Okay. And this finish line has a gingival finish wall perpendicular to the axial surface of the teeth. Here it is the shoulder finish line. This is perpendicular to the axial surface of the teeth. And if the marginal wall is at 120 degree to the axial walls, then it is termed as the sloping shoulder. Here it is 120 degree. Okay. And generally, shoulder finish line is preferred for all ceramic restorations where sufficient thickness of the margin is required for structural durability. All anterior restorations are fabricated with a shoulder margin where aesthetics is primary concern. And it is the braided shoulder finish line. It is done with flat and tapered diamond and end cutting parallel side carbide finishing work. And finishing is done by modified special bin angle chisel. So it is the finish line of the shoulder is the finish line of the choice for all ceramic restoration and facial margins of metal ceramic restoration where aesthetics is more concerned. Wide ledge gives the resistance. Sharp internal line angle may cause stress concentration and the fracture of the tooth, and it requires more tooth reduction. This is the shoulder with a bevel finish line. Here it is the shoulder with a bevel. And these are the unbeveled preparation. This is the beveled preparation. So it is actually similar to a shoulder finish line, but an external bevel is created at the gingival margin of the finish line. And it is used as a gingival finish line on the proximal box of inlays and onlays. And in occlusal shoulder preparation, a contra bevel is used to prevent the need for over contouring the restoration. Here the unbeveled preparations, they have an even perpendicular marginal discrepancy because the angle of margin is around 90 degree. Here it is the beveled preparation. The marginal discrepancy, that is the effective distance between the tooth and restoration, which decreases from D1 to D2 because the angle of margin is reduced. Theoretically, if theta decreases to 0 degree, the marginal discrepancy also decreases to 0. What are the advantages of a finish line bevel? It aids in contouring the restoration, it improves burnishability, it minimizes the marginal discrepancy, and it prevents the unsupported prepared margins from chipping. These are the various advantages of finish line bevel. This is the knife edge preparation. Here it is an extremely thin finish line and it is similar to a sloping shoulder with a very thin margin. And it is difficult to wax up and cast, and it is difficult to produce a smooth margin. And it is also acceptable to the distortion. An over-contoured restoration may result while building the bulk of the margin. And the indications are lingual surface of mandibular posterior teeth, very convex axial surface, and for the undercut surface of the tipped teeth. And what of shoulderless or feather edge preparation? It is actually similar to a knife edge preparation but is marginally thinner. And it has the same disadvantages as the knife edge preparation. And chisel edge preparation are similar to the feather edge, but it is marginally thicker. So these are the feather edge preparation. And this picture shows the facio-occlusal finish line of a maxillary 3/4 crown. Here it is a flat bevel. This is a contra bevel. And when the cusp is bulky, a knife edge, these are the acceptable finish lines. So which are the acceptable finish lines? Flat bevel, contra bevel, and a knife edge. But the knife edge is not an acceptable finish line on sharp or small cusp. Okay. Here the cement film thickness which prevents the complete closure of marginal gap. If a bevel of 45 degrees is added to a shoulder, then the crown will be prevented from seating by a factor of 1.4. As the margin decreased to an angle of 30 degree, then the crown is displaced twice as much as it would be with a shoulder. And margin of 15 degree would prevent the seating of factors, seating by factor of 3.9, and 5 degree it is 11.5. If the marginal gap for the shoulder were 25 micrometer, this picture shows the effect of marginal fit of beveling the gingival margin. Here, Pascoe showed that when an oversized crown is considered, the discrepancy is increased rather than decreased. In this picture, it shows the internal cross section of a crown is the same or less than that of the prepared tooth. A 45 degree bevel decreases the marginal discrepancy by 70%. And if the internal diameter is slightly larger than the prepared tooth, beveling increases the marginal discrepancy. In practice, the crowns are made slightly larger than the prepared tooth to allow for the luting agent. So properly seated castings should have minimal marginal gap width. Here this is the picture showing the shoulder margin, which provide more bulk of metal than the heavy chamfer margin. Acute angle is likely to chip. Okay. So in practice, dentists tend to under-prepare the facial shoulder margin, which leads to restorations with inferior aesthetics or poor axial contour. Here it is the shoulder bevel. The beveled margins will extend further intracircularly to obtain satisfactory aesthetics. So in this picture, it shows the beveled shoulder margin. It must be placed deeper in the gingival sulcus so that the wider band of the metal will be hidden. Okay, this is the D, compare depth D, and this is capital D. Okay, so here it must be placed deeper in the gingival sulcus so that the wider band of metal will be hidden. This is the scanning electron micrograph of a shoulder margin prepared with a high-speed diamond. Okay, this one. And this is the scanning electron micrograph of a margin refined with a sharp chisel. Here it is margin beveled with a tungsten carbide bar, and this is the picture of a bevel placed with a sharp hand instrument. And the finish line should be at least 3 mm away from the alveolar crest to preserve the periodontium such that it should not violate the biologic. And moving to the sloped shoulder, as we already said, it is this 120 degree sloped shoulder margin and the facial margin of a metal ceramic crown, no unsupported enamel, at sufficient bulk to allow thinning of the metal framework to a knife edge for acceptable aesthetics. This is the radial shoulder. It is a modified shoulder and cavo surface is 90 degree. Shoulder width is lessened with rounded internal angles. So lesser stress concentration than classic shoulder and good support for the porcelain. And a shoulder with a bevel, it allows the cast metal margin to be bent or burnished against the prepared tooth structure. It minimizes the marginal discrepancy. It removes the unsupported enamel. And the indications are proximal box of inlays and onlays, occlusal shoulder of onlays and mandibular 3/4 crowns, and facial finish line of the metal ceramic restoration, that is gingival aesthetics, is not critical. And the knife edge, it permits acute margin of metal, axis reduction may fade out, thin margin, and it is difficult to wax and cast, susceptible to distortion, and the indications are mandibular posterior teeth with very convex axial surfaces, lingually tilted lower molars. Although conservative of tooth structure, feather edge or shoulderless crown preparation should be avoided because they do not provide adequate bulk of the margins. Adequate bulk of the material at the margins. Okay. These are the various margin designs. Here it is a feather edge. This is chisel edge, chamfer, beveled, shoulder, sloped shoulder, and beveled shoulder. Although conservative of tooth structure, feather edge or shoulderless crown preparation should be avoided because they do not provide adequate bulk at the margins. And a variation of a feather edge, that is chisel edge margin. It is formed when the angle between axial surfaces and the unprepared tooth structure is larger. Unfortunately, the margin is frequently associated with preparations with excessive angle of convergence or taper and preparations in which the orientation of axial reduction is not correctly aligned with the long axis of the tooth. Okay, and this is the chamfer finish line. This is finish line of choice for cast metal restoration. Okay, and here it is the beveled margin. This one is the shoulder finish line. Shoulder finish line is the finish line of choice for all ceramic crowns. Here it is the sloped shoulder, that is 120-degree sloped shoulder margin. It is used sometimes as an alternative to 90-degree shoulder margin for the facial margin of metal ceramic crowns. And it reduces the possibility of leaving unsupported enamel but leaves sufficient bulk to allow thinning of the metal framework to a knife edge for acceptable aesthetics. And this is the beveled shoulder. And the feather edge preparations may be the best option for porcelain laminate veneer preparation. Actually, the feather edge and chisel edges are unacceptable, but the main advantage was that they facilitated the impression making with the rigid modeling compound in copper bands, but it is not used today. So that is about the various margin designs. Okay. These are the scanning electron micrographs of various margin designs. Here it is the feather or a chisel edge. This is beveled edge. Then chamfer, shoulder, sloped shoulder, and beveled shoulder. This is a table showing finite element analysis for preparation finish line. For classic shoulder, it is 2885, radial shoulder 2101, and deep chamfer 1897. That is stress. So in this from this table we can find out that the classic shoulder has more stress, then radial shoulder lesser than classic, and very less is deep chamfer compared to the shoulder. Okay. And this table shows the various advantages and disadvantages of different margin designs. Feather edge is conservative of tooth structure, but it does not provide sufficient bulk and it is actually not recommended. Chisel edge, conservative of tooth structure, location of margin difficult to control, occasionally on the tilted teeth. Beveled, it removes unsupported enamel, allows finishing of metal, extends preparation into the sulcus if used on apical margin, and the indications are facial margin of maxillary partial coverage restoration and inlay-onlay margins. Then chamfer, distinct margin, adequate bulk and easier to control. Care is needed to avoid unsupported lip of enamel, cast metal restoration, lingual margin of metal ceramic crowns. Then shoulder, bulk of the restrictive material, it is less conservative of tooth structure, and the facial margin of metal ceramic crowns and complete ceramic crowns is the indication. And sloped shoulder, bulk of material, advantages of bevel, then the less conservative of tooth structure and facial margins of metal ceramic crowns. Then beveled shoulder, bulk of material, advantages of bevel, then less conservative, extends preparation apically, and the facial margin of posterior metal ceramic crowns with supragingival margins. And according to Schillingberg, these are the various advantages and disadvantages. Chamfer, minimal tooth destruction and minimal stress. Disadvantage is that reduces the crown strength. If it's ceramic, then poor aesthetics. Deep chamfer, moderate tooth destruction and the minimal stress in tooth, reduces crown strength and potential lip formation. Classic shoulder, maximal aesthetics, maximal crown strength and prevents over contouring, maximal destruction and maximal tooth stress. Radial shoulder, maximal aesthetics, excellent crown strength and less stress than the classic shoulder, destructive of tooth, more stress than chamfer. Then radial shoulder with a bevel, excellent crown strength, less stress than classic shoulder, destructive of tooth, more stress than chamfer, poor aesthetics, it necessitates the metal collar. Then radial shoulder, finally knife edge, it is minimal destruction and the ceramic over contouring, then poor aesthetics and weaker crown margin. That is all about the finish line configurations. Thanks for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe my channel for more videos.